Federal government shutdown averted mere hours before the headline. Is right there at thecentersquare.com. So they had a deadline upon them, and you can see that they went ahead and approved a continuing resolution. It's Illinois in focus, and we like to take time to look what's going on over in Washington, D.C., because those are your tax dollars, too. So we do this from time to time. We're going to be working in some of the conversations with the Center Square reporters from across the country, including in Washington, D.C., about how you're being impacted, even right here in Illinois, with what's going on in Congress. So let's check this out, because obviously there was an interesting split amongst Democrats in the Senate as to whether or not to give Republicans the continuing resolution that Republicans wanted to continue funding the government for a few more months while they put together a full fiscal year budget. Republicans control Congress right now. They control the White House. So Democrats are in the minority. But let's read from Therese Boudreau's story here at thecentersquare.com. Again, the headline is Government Shutdown Averted Mere Hours Before Deadline. Lawmakers have prevented a shutdown of the federal government by passing a 6-month funding stopgap bill, with the U.S. Senate voting 54 to 46 hours before that midnight deadline. The passage of the continuing resolution follows a nail-biter cloture vote Friday afternoon, where 9 Democrats and 1 independent ultimately voted for Republicans' continuing resolution, which needed 60 votes to advance to the final majority vote. Now, lawmakers then rejected 4 proposed amendments to the CR before proceeding to the final vote around 6 o'clock in the evening. Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky, a Republican, the only Republican to vote against the bill, while Senators Jeannie Sheehan and Angus King, an independent, were the only non-Republicans to support it. Now, President Donald Trump supported the measure. The continuing resolution will keep most government spending on autopilot through September 30th. That's the end of the existing fiscal year. Now, the bill makes some funding adjustments from the 2024 bill, including slashing $13 billion in non-defense spending, boosting defense spending by $6 billion, increasing WIC and CSFP nutritional programs spending by $500 million and $36 million, respectively. Other uses of your tax dollars include authorizing billions of dollars for U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement deportation efforts, veterans health care, and air traffic control safety priorities. Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid spending would remain unchanged. So you can see here, when it comes down to the actual passage of this bill and what exactly they put into it, a lot of lead up from the past week, you had Democrats saying that Trump and Musk are going to slash social safety net programs, but apparently Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid remaining unchanged in their spending. But that didn't stop all of the political back and forth, especially within the Democratic Party. You had a statement from U.S. Senator Dick Durbin, and I'll just read this to you, that he released on Friday when he was talking about the continuing resolution. He said that there's very little about this continuing resolution that I like, and there's even less I like about shutting down the government. Now, this is a crucial point here at Chuck Schumer, the Senate's minority leader, Democrat leader in the Senate, made, was if we shut the government down by not allowing this to go through, then the Trump administration will have even more powers to be able to limit funding here, fire people there, and so on. So that was the big concern with some of the Democrats that joined Republicans in supporting that. They didn't want Trump to have more power. So back to Durbin's comments here. He goes on to say that while Donald Trump and Elon Musk are taking a chainsaw to the federal government's workforce and illegally freezing federal funding, the last thing we need to do is the government to be plunging our country into further chaos and turmoil by shutting down the government. Again, more from Durbin's notes here. He says the Senate Democratic Caucus was unified on a clean 1-month CR that would have kept the government open and given Congress time to negotiate bipartisan legislation. But Durbin says he's disappointed that our Republican colleagues wouldn't join us in the effort. He says, I'll continue to fight against Donald Trump's reckless and, in many instances, illegal attempts to gut the federal government. He is testing our system of checks and balances like they haven't been tested in my lifetime. He says the fight continues. So that's Senator Durbin's take on the continuing resolution. Governor J.B. Pritzker, Illinois' Democratic governor, jumping into the fray as well, and he had a different take. So again, here is some of what Governor J.B. Pritzker put out on Friday about what he thought should happen here. So he says Republicans in Congress have abdicated their responsibility to critically evaluate the damage Donald Trump is doing to critical services the American people need. Democrats have the ability to force bipartisanship and bring the two sides together to make a budget that reflects priorities we all ought to share. America was founded on the concept of checks and balances, but Republicans in Congress have decided to bend their knee to Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and their cronies who seek to gut our government from the inside out. It is dangerous. Illinoisans know all too well what happens when Republicans are reckless and play politics with people's livelihood. Veterans will have trouble getting health care. Workers will lose jobs. When infrastructure projects grind to a halt, preschool will lose teachers, and parents will be left without child care. Make no mistake, Pritzker said, people will suffer the consequences of their negligence. He says Democrats have the power to stop the cession of power to Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and they should use it. I urge a no vote on the continuing resolution. You got to think to yourself how much politics is being played here. Now, this is a congressional conversation about the continuing resolution. That's like on a macro level. But if you look at it on a micro level, in Illinois, for instance, Republicans are in the super minority, where they have no say in the budget. There may be some, budgeteers that are Republicans that take part in conversations with the governor's office, but every year the Republicans in the super minority say that they are shut out of the budgeting process. So in Illinois, it's very partisan because you have a Democrat party that's controlling the legislature and every statewide constitutional office, like governor, for instance. That's the micro level. On the macro level in Washington, D.C., it's Republicans now that are in control, and Democrats are complaining that they're not part of the process. So when you look at these and you compare these two, especially Governor Pritzker getting involved in this debate, it's kind of fascinating. Just take a step back and look at this kind of through a political lens, so you can see how these things play out. And one thing that we also see in Illinois is since Democrats have a supermajority, they're going to be able to get a budget passed before the May 31st deadline in Illinois. They're going to be able to give cover to some Democrats who are in some competitive districts throughout the state because they have enough of a buffer from the 61 votes in the House that are needed to pass a budget with simple majorities by May 31st. And they have 78 Democrats. So you got to think that's a large number of Democrats that could be given a little bit of cover to not support the budget that's ultimately going to pass. Was that the same thing that happened in Washington, D.C.? Chuck Schumer coming out and saying, you know what, we're going to support this. I just need a handful of Democrats to join me. Senator Durbin was one of them that joined Schumer. So they got those Democrats together to pass that CR, giving the other Democrats cover to essentially distance themselves from that conversation. Just a couple of clips here from the Sunday morning shows. This is Senator Chris Murphy on Meet the Press talking about why he thinks that it was a bad idea for Democrats to support the continuing resolution.
Yes, it would have been a risk. I understand the decision that many of my Democratic colleagues made, but I think the American people want us to take risks right now in order to save our democracy.
So it's about saving the democracy, he says. Senator Whitehouse was also interviewed on the Sunday morning shows on ABC. He talked about how MAGA Republicans are the problem and DOJ is tearing the country apart.
With these MAGA extremists in charge, they don't necessarily want to come out of shutdown, just like Doge is doing, except with a veneer of legitimacy, with the authority of shutdown powers. So they were both extremely, extremely dangerous options. And my view is that as Democrats, we need to stop the intramural quarreling about who voted what way and get back to work saving our democracy.
So again, saving democracy is what they say is why they're standing up and being vocal against President Trump and Elon Musk. We'll see how this goes. But Trump was at the U.S. Department of Justice Friday, and he really laid out some of what he says is the reason why he got elected. I mean, keep in mind, there was an election. Trump got the popular vote, the Electoral College vote. Republicans took control of the U.S. House. Republicans took control of the U.S. Senate, all through an election. And here's the president laying out some of the things that he says was really why he got elected.
You know, one of the big media outlets said what we did was the most consequential election in the last 129 years. Well, if we do the job that we're all capable of doing, I think it's going to prove to be that and then some. And that's what we want to do. We have a real big shot at making this country so great, so great. What happened to our country was so sad. What they've done in 4 years to our country with the borders, with Afghanistan, the most embarrassing period of time, allowing the Russian situation, was never going to happen, with Ukraine. Allowing October 7th to happen would have never happened, because under me, Iran was totally broke. They had no money. They weren't giving any money to Hamas or Hezbollah. It was totally broke. But allowing inflation, look at what inflation's done to people, been so devastating. And now you see that, by the way, price of eggs is down 35% in the last week and a half. We're doing a good job. Brooke is doing a good job. Brooke Rollins and everybody. And inflation's down, interest rates are down, gasoline has come down to a level that we haven't seen in a long time. All things that we wanted to do, because then everything else is going to be coming down. We want it to come down. We want bacon to come down, and groceries, a term I used to use. It's sort of an old-fashioned term, but I used to use it on the campaign trail, those last 90 perfect, beautiful days. We just hit it. And I want to thank Susie. You have done a great job. Susie Wiles. Great job, Susie. A big magazine just named her the most powerful woman.
So there you go. There's Trump. Just a little bit of what he had to say at the U.S. Department of Justice. After, obviously, 2 months in office, the continued fight in Congress. They've got a bill that's going to fund border security, that's going to increase funds for defense, that's going to keep various social safety net programs funded where they were. The Republicans are going to come together with a new spending plan. We'll be watching it all. Obviously, you can get those headlines at thecentersquare.com. Sign up for that newsletter. And wake up with us here at Illinois in Focus Daily each and every weekday morning, right here on YouTube.